It is mind-blowing that Fortnite has become a success. This is a great game that looked like a massive financial and critical failure that was going to cost Epic Games a fortune. It was a game that had the most confusing and convoluted identity of any AAA release, touting itself as Minecraft mixed with DayZ, with a good bit of Borderlands all shoved into one cartoon-covered release. The game launched to a huge round of applause from the small group of people that remember it existed, and that round of applause got increasingly silent as the game wavered in a middling space on PC and an even less impressive space on consoles for the first couple of months after release. Fortnite is a game that took 7 years to develop, that was prematurely announced in 2012 to be released on PCs only the following year. The game's 2013 release window came and went to the tune of 4 years of delays. And yet Epic continued to show the game year after year, leaving people baffled that the game hadn't been canceled, and it got to a point where it wouldn't have mattered what level of quality the final release would be imbued with, because people would have stopped caring by the time it came out. Yet somehow, in the span of 2 weeks in October of 2017, the game accrued 10 million new players in 2 weeks, months after its launch. This is about more than just one game mode. Fortnite's success is earned across the board, but with that success comes the magnifying of the game's issues as well. So what happened? How exactly did Epic in this game pull off one of the biggest surprises of 2017? Today we're going to examine the question that Fortnite creates for itself. Can a game be both great and terrible simultaneously? Can a game be both good and bad and still succeed? We're going to look at Fortnite's biggest failures, but we're also going to look at the things it gets so right, the things it does so well, its greatest successes, so that hopefully by the end of this essay we can come to a conclusion as to what Fortnite's future really looks like. But to get started, let's take a look at the base of the Fortnite experience.
Oh my god, who the hell cares?
Fortnite's launch was fine. Due to a smart release window and launching without any real competition surrounding it, its early access release was a boon for gamers that had been hit by what some refer to as the annual Summer Games drought. The game sold 500,000 early access copies in its first 24 hours of availability, and everything looked fine. But fine is all it ever really looked for those first few months. Outside of that 500k sales number, you'd be hard-pressed to find any information at all about the user base and player counts throughout its first few months on the market, because those numbers seemed to be far from spectacular. The game would not start topping any concurrent player list until well after its original launch. In fact, a month or two after launch, a lot of forums were filled with PC players having a hard time matchmaking at higher levels. So why was it that Fortnite wasn't blazing a trail through the medium as soon as gamers got their hands on it? Well, Fortnite is a unique concept that is only really unique in the sense that it combines 3 other already existing ideas into one game. The base game is a base building, tower defense, PvE loot shooter. It's just as Minecraft, Plants vs. Zombies, and Borderlands as it sounds. The game does each of these things well enough. Base building is easy even with a controller, intuitive and fun. The third-person shooting mechanics feel tight, they work reasonably well, and never get in the player's way, and the loot aspect of the game provides a true sense of reward and progression. But Fortnite does all of these things in a slightly above average fashion when viewed individually and in isolation. However, about 5 to 10 hours into the game, when all of these mechanics start meshing together and feel more understandable to the player, Fortnite becomes something truly special. But that was also part of the problem with the game, especially at launch. Fortnite was not necessarily understandable or inviting to the casual player. The game has a steep mechanical and systemic learning curve. This is not a game that you pick up and play for one night and walk away with an understanding of what you've gotten yourself into. At launch, saying some of the game's RPG systems were poorly explained would have been a compliment. Its loot system seemed all too wrapped up in microtransactions, progression was a confusing mess of menus and unlocks, and even the overworld map that you would use to choose your next mission was a bit too convoluted. These surface issues made Fortnite a hard recommendation for both critics and its player base when it launched in early access, because at the time, the game was in its earliest of early access states. And then 2 fateful decisions were made by Epic that made all these problems obsolete, or at least far less damning.
Off your troubles, I will sponsor a no-holds-barred battle to the death among our cutest children.
Makes sense.
What sickos want to see ugly kids die?
Fortnite's troubled development was in part due to confusion within Epic. Games as a service became their goal, and they started to shift towards their free-to-play MOBA paragon mid-development of Fortnite. But in 2017, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds reared its head within popular culture and things began to change, and came up with a not-so-ideal idea. The idea was to figure out how they could too create a battle royale within the Fortnite engine as quickly as humanly possible. The idea was to only incorporate ideas that had already been incorporated in the single player mode and already worked in engine. Essentially, they wanted to cobble something together fast to meet a burgeoning trend. And they did. It got to a point in development that the team actually considered, or at least thought about, cutting building from Battle Royale because they were concerned that due to the shifting nature of the game and its map, that no one would actually use it. They also had a plan to make Battle Royale a paid part of Fortnite. The idea was to package it with the, at the time and still currently, paid Save the World mode to boost the value of the package and drive more sales. But Epic wanted growth and they wanted it fast. Fortnite Battle Royale completed its development start to finish in literally 2 months. That's it. 2 months. For point of reference, that's just over 2.5% of the time it took to complete Fortnite Save the World in its finally ready for public play early access state. So, Fortnite Battle Royale would launch, and it would launch as an entirely separate entity. After working closely with Bluehole and their work on PUBG, their work and problems were far from finished. Yes, they had completed a Battle Royale mode, yes, they had managed to launch it first on consoles, but now they had an entirely different problem on their hands. One that could have stopped Fortnite and its growth right in its tracks.
Welcome to the Hotel Hell. Check-in time is now, check-out time is never.
Does my room have cable?
No. And the sheets are made of fire.
The Battle Royale portion of the Fortnite experience is free to play regardless of whether or not you own the full release of Fortnite. This was an incredibly smart business decision because the publicity and player base of Battle Royale is driving the popularity, sales, and player count of the original release. Even more ingenious, the Battle Royale expansion launches direct from the original Fortnite client on PC, boosting those concurrent player numbers even further, thus giving the game an even more marketable edge. If you've never played Fortnite, you probably know its name from Bluehole, the developer behind PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, calling out Fortnite very publicly and even threatening to sue Epic over Fortnite, calling the game a replicant of PUBG and pointing to Epic stating that PUBG was a direct influence of their development, marking it even further as a ripoff or blatant copy of their product. So why hasn't Epic actually been brought to court over this? Well, the first reason is simple. Fortnite's Battle Royale mode brought in 10 million players in the span of a week. If Bluehole were to take Epic to court, it would be a battle, and probably a losing one, because writing Battle Royale off as a direct copycat, like some including myself originally did, is the creation of a fallacy. Yes, on the surface, both games look quite similar. Players load into a lobby with others where they can mess around until the game starts. Once the game does start, players are all dumped into an airplane or an Airbus if you're playing Fortnite, and from here, the similarities start to end. And they end with even the small things. Fortnite's jumping and movement is much faster paced. You can get further on the map than you can in PUBG, but yes, the objective is still to eliminate the competition. But really, the games are markedly different. Perhaps the biggest difference you'll find between PUBG and Fortnite's Battle Royale mode is the crafting that Fortnite brings to the table. This crafting drastically shifts strategy, approach, and even map layout in terms of what you're seeing on a match-to-match basis. While it certainly isn't as in-depth as the base Fortnite's crafting, you'll find that the ability to create stairs, walls, and other buildable objects plays well within the environment, and being able to create your own defenses on the go will make it very easy to defend yourself against other players. This crafting adds a layer of strategy and gameplay that also removes some of the how do I traverse this open space problem of PUBG. Now you can make that space less open. The other main difference worth mentioning here is the simple thematic and tonal differences that extend beyond aesthetics and into the actual gameplay of the two games. PUBG takes a far more serious, gruff military style approach to gameplay, items, weapons, aesthetics, and even environment. The actual gunplay mechanics are designed to feel and sound a bit more realistic, and the environments are drab in that abandoned locale kind of way. The game takes itself relatively seriously, and that helps to encourage its competitive environment. Fortnite, on the other hand, is just a bunch of fun nonsense. Its art style has an extreme cartoon influence, its gunplay is far more arcadey, and its approach to competition is much more let's all have fun and far less let's all put all of our energy into this. Fortnite Battle Royale is different than PUBG, and it's its differences that make it great. But while this game mode is great, the game itself is not without its very real problems.
God, you have chocolate macadamia nut. Oh, could I just try a little sample? Oh, I'm so bad.
Sure. You gonna buy a cookie this time?
Fortnite's real push, and what really took it and Save the World and pushed them ahead of quite literally everything else, is the way that it expanded, the way that it used the actual game to permeate popular culture. Fortnite turned itself into an event-driven experience. For most games, an event means the same exact gameplay and a couple of skins, or maybe a snowball fight mode in arcade, but other than that, it doesn't mean all that much, and the changes are rarely ever there to stay. Whether it's thousands of players waiting for a meteor or a small map change, Fortnite probably would have stagnated by now if it weren't for how expertly Epic has adapted. Fortnite's map is ever-changing, but the clever part is Epic allows you to witness the changes and be a part of them. Each season is something to genuinely look forward to as a result, and each season changes how you play just a little in response. Remember that giant cube? Remember when Infinity War took over popular culture? Yeah, Fortnite made sure they got in on that popular culture shift as well by creating a whole new way to play the game for a limited period of time in a way that was a bit unbalanced but genuinely cool. Remember the start of the NFL season? You probably do because you probably threw a jersey on your character. Remember the film competition that led to the movie playing at the in-game drive-in that you could actually sit there and watch if someone didn't try to murder you first? Fortnite's colorful, let's just have fun slant allows it to be a part of literally everything. It allows it to partner with Marvel and the NFL. It allows it to grow and change in ways that other games simply can't. It also helps when every Halloween and every Christmas, you're greeted with seasonal events that help accomplish the very same things. This is what games as a service is supposed to be about, even if it's not always the best idea, or free to play is supposed to be about, even if it's not always the best idea as well. It's supposed to be about a game that's always changing, a game that's always bringing you back because it's always giving you a reason to come back. It becomes a constant reason to visit it. Its games as a service are free to play done mostly right, but that doesn't mean that it gets everything right, and that also doesn't mean there isn't reason to be concerned about the game's future. The future of Fortnite is at its most uncertain right now. Today, Fortnite is just one of many Battle Royale modes on consoles and mobile. With PUBG, Blackout, and Firestorm on the way, Fortnite is no longer a novelty, even as it continues to be free. It's also seemingly reached critical mass. Fortnite is on every platform you can imagine. It's won Game of the Year awards, it's been played by Drake and Travis Scott, so where does it go now? Well, the answer is simple: down. It's not because Fortnite isn't a good game or that it's getting worse, it's that the game has nowhere else to go. But to ensure that the game's fall isn't a continuous one, Epic has to be incredibly careful. They have to make sure they're not changing the game in pursuit of a player base that isn't theirs. Things like pop-up bases, de-emphasizing building, the path to make the game even more accessible is a path in the wrong direction. It's not hard to see where the path leads. It's never a good idea to turn off your core player base. It's never a good idea to prioritize new players over the players that have built the foundation of your game. Those are the players that keep your game alive, the literal foundation that will collapse if you abandon them. Epic probably knows this better than anyone, given that they did the very same thing to Paragon. Paragon's collapse had a whole lot to do with Epic misplacing resources and ideas, chasing things that the people playing the game simply didn't want. Yes, things like the Thanos events are cool. Yes, Epic has done a great job of building hype for map changes, but at the end of the day, the core play experience is what keeps people coming back to a game, and that means every bit of it. The ground game, the building, squad play, all things that need to constantly be balanced as changes come. The trend of rebalancing building and making Fortnite a game for everyone is a scary one. I can't think of a game quite as accessible as Fortnite. I can't think of a game quite as approachable. It doesn't need to be those two things anymore than it already is. Fortnite has had maybe the strangest path of any game I can possibly remember. To go from something that seemed to be entirely dead on arrival to quite literally one of the biggest intellectual properties in the world is a feat that sounds absolutely ridiculous when put in the context of a game that frequently allows you to fire pumpkins at people while wearing a Minnesota Vikings uniform. But Fortnite has become something of a ubiquity across all walks of life, but it's done something far more important than sales numbers and accolades in the process. Regardless of what you think of Fortnite, regardless of whether or not you enjoy playing it, Fortnite and Fortnite Mobile has opened the door for so many people to begin to understand and enjoy video games. Fortnite has become a gateway for children and adults alike to discover a love for gaming in an accessible and easy to understand way that very few games are able to offer. Fortnite is far from a perfect game. Hell, there's an argument to be made that it's barely scratching the surface of greatness. But it's what it's done for the way so many view gaming, what it's done for a medium and its modern acceptance that's worth raving about. There are certainly problems. There will continue to be problems with Fortnite. There are going to be people out there that say that the game has gone downhill, that the game has become unbalanced, that the game is prioritizing things that they don't want, and for a lot of people, that's going to be hard to disagree with. Fortnite is changing. I guess that's part of what Fortnite is, and maybe it's not all in the right direction, maybe most of it isn't in the right direction, but that change is only going to continue. Yes, I don't like seeing every 12-year-old kid floss in the middle of the sidewalk as I'm trying to get dinner, but maybe, just maybe, that kid's love for Fortnite will will turn into so much more, and that is exactly what gaming should be about: fostering community and fun.
Well, guys, that was it for today's doc, and as always, the start of a dialogue. What do you think of PUBG? What do you think of Fortnite? And what do you think of the differences between the two games? Which one do you like more? And have you played the base experience of Fortnite? What do you think of that experience? And what do you think are Fortnite's greatest successes and its greatest failures? Let me know the answers to any of those questions down in the comments below. Let's have a real conversation. As always, if you enjoyed this video, hit that like button. If you are not yet a member of this team, press subscribe. I put out gaming analysis, examinations, and essays just like this one twice a week, so hit subscribe so you do not miss any. And as always, I will link the Patreon in the top pinned comment down below. It's there where you can support me in this channel a little bit further if you felt the desire to, but just watching these is help enough. And as always, I will link my Twitter handle in the top pinned comment as well. It's there where you can follow me to take polls as to what essays you want to see talked about next, or what things you want to see talked about next, what games I'm playing, and kind of get an idea of what's coming to the channel next or soon. So follow me at the Twitter handle, that will be down below. And yeah, I'm not even going to apologize this time. I just want to say thank you, as I always do, for your support, for being here through this journey with me. I love talking about games. I love making these essays. And I love the fact that you guys enjoy them, because I wouldn't be able to do this without you guys. So thank you for the support. As always, even if you hate these videos, thank you for giving me a chance. And maybe in the future, I'll put out something you like. So hopefully you stick around. So until next time, guys, I'm out.